We are going to bundle the first four bills. They are companion bills that we passed on the Senate earlier. The first bill is 5101, and that was a companion bill from Senator Oyer, which we passed on 2/4/21. The second bill, which is 5129, which is a companion bill to Senator DeMario, which we passed on 3/10. The third bill is 5217, which was Senator Rogers' bill, which we passed on 2/4/21. The fourth bill is 5330. It's a companion bill to Senator Coyne, which we passed on 3/10/21. Do I hear a motion to, take a roll for us, clerk? Take a roll.
Senator Lombardo.
Here.
Senator Coleman.
Here.
Senator Rogers. Senator Anderson.
Here.
Senator Gallo. Senator Mack.
Present.
Senator Picard.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Do I hear a motion to move passage for these four bills? By
So
Senator
moved.
Coleman. Is there a second? Second by Senator Picard. Roll. Clerk, take a roll, please.
Senator Lombardo.
Yes.
Senator Coleman.
Yes.
Senator Rogers. Senator Anderson.
Yes.
Senator Mack. Senator Picard.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Next bill on the agenda is Bill 116 by Senator Seveney, an act relating to cities and towns, zoning ordinance entitled. Senator Seveney, thank you for joining this afternoon.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, thanks for having me. So this bill looks to amend the zoning, the Rhode Island Zoning Enabling Act, and clarify that a zoning board may, at its discretion, consider property uses which are not specifically listed in the use tables that most everybody's zoning ordinance has. The problem arises when somebody wants to do something on their property. It's reasonable, the zoning board thinks it's okay, there's no issues with neighbors and all that, but it isn't specifically mentioned on that list in the zoning ordinance, so they can't deal with it. When that happens, the property owner is stuck, and there's really no relief until the town council decides to amend their zoning ordinance and maybe add things to that list, et cetera, et cetera. And it takes a long time. Right now, there's, I think, 17 out of the 39 municipalities already have language in their zoning ordinance that provides this kind of consideration and discretion on the part of the zoning board. But what happened recently in the town of Portsmouth is Newport Superior Court said, "I'm sorry, you can't really do that. It's not in accordance with the state law, the Zoning Enabling Act of '91." So what this legislation does is add clarifications to the Rhode Island Zoning Enabling Act to specifically in the law allow the municipalities to provide, if they wish, in their zoning ordinance, discretion for a zoning board to make determination on a use case for a piece of property, even though that use might not be specifically called out in the ordinance. And that's what this does. I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Senator Seveney. Senator Seveney, do you have an example that you could share with us where this may have happened in the past?
Most recently, and what was in the papers is a property owner wanted to put a solar array on his property, and the zoning board approved it as a reasonable use under a special under a special use permit after a hearing. And then the town got sued by some of the abutters who didn't want it or whatever the case may be, and it went to court. And because, you know, installing solar panels on your property isn't specifically called out in the use cases in the Portsmouth zoning ordinance, Superior Court overturned it and said, no, you really can't do that. So that's, it's that kind of thing that we want to fix. I mean, there's probably, you know, a dozen examples of somebody who wants to do something and it's okay and it's reasonable and it doesn't bother anyone necessarily. But it's not on the list, so the zoning board's sort of handcuffed, trying to fix that.
Thank you, Senator. Senator, we do have a town resolution from the West Warwick approving this. Do we have any questions from the committee? Seeing none, hearing none. Is there a motion to hold for further study?
So moved.
By Senator Rogers, by Senator Picard, seconded by Senator Coleman. Clerk, take a roll, please.
Senator Lombardo,
Yes.
Senator Coleman,
Yes.
Senator Rogers, Senator Rogers,
Yes.
Senator Anderson,
Yes.
Senator Gallo,
Yes.
Senator Mack,
Yes.
Senator Picard.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Senator Seveney?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Are we on to 115?
We are on to 115.
Okay, thank you. So this bill corrects an ambiguity that's currently in law related to the tax appeal process and the periodic revaluation cycle. This has been around for several years. We're trying to get this cleaned up. Really, it's the clarification is quite simple. All we're trying to do in the existing law is to add the phrase that as of December 31st in the year of the last update or reval. And the reason that's important is because that isn't clearly laid out in the law right now. And what we found out the hard way when we took this to court is that the court, specifically the Supreme Court, the Rhode Island Supreme Court, couldn't come to a decision in a case where a group of well-to-do property owners got together in 2008 and came to the town and said, we want a revaluation immediately on our properties. This was the Carnegie Abbey properties over on the west side. Because as we all know, in 2008, the property values everywhere plummeted. The previous revaluation was done in 2007, so as of December 31st of 2007, their property values were X, and by the following year, the values were X minus lot. So they came to the town and said, okay, we want to appeal our taxes from last year, and the town's position was, we do this every 3 years, just like the law states. So they rejected the request. It went to court. and eventually got to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said the law is ambiguous and we can't make a decision on this. So the lower court finding stands, and the town has to rebate all this money back to these property owners, in spite of the fact that it was between the regular revaluation periods. So this has set up a lot of issues, related to fair taxation and all that, because it established a circumstance where in a down year where property values are down, anyone can come along, appeal their tax valuation and get a reduction, but the town has to do it every 3 years, like the state has mandated. So what this bill does is simply add that phrase. It says everybody has to use the same standard, which is any appeal of your property taxes has to be based on the previous either formal valuation or the periodic updates that take place every 3 years. So that's what that phrase does, and that would clear up any ambiguity that the courts found in the existing law, and that's what this bill is intended to do. And I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Senator. We do have 2 people that signed up to testify on this bill. Before we go to them, do we have any questions for Senator Seveney? Okay, give us 1 minute so we can get a hold of Brian Daniels. Brian, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Brian Daniels, representing the Rhode Island League of Cities and Towns, in support. Brian, floor's all yours.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee for the opportunity to testify. Would like to thank Senator Seveney for sponsoring this bill. This is a priority for our members. It is endorsed by the League of Cities and Towns, and I know the Tax Assessors Association has also been supportive. I believe you have some testimony from at least one, possibly more, tax assessors on this bill. So Senator Seveney gave the background and explained it very well as to why we're here and the background of the Supreme Court case. But just as a reminder, cities and towns are required to use the most recent statistical revaluation or full revaluation as they're setting their tax levies. But this appeal, this decision from the state Supreme Court will allow annual appeals in a down market, as the senator pointed out. So really, this bill just restores the previous standard. We've been using the 3-year standard since 1997. We're trying to go back to that. And the reason it matters, and the reason why it's not just a Portsmouth issue, but it's an issue for all cities and towns, is that, as the senator pointed out, if there's a down market, property owners will be able to appeal their valuation on an annual basis. So that's something that I know a lot of our members are concerned about right now as we're trying to figure out what the impact of COVID-19 is going to be on the commercial real estate market. There is a concern that there might be people who are going to start challenging valuations on commercial properties. And when you have those challenges, it means, first of all, it's an annual basis, so they can happen every year. There are legal costs associated with all the cities and towns for going through this and challenging those appeals. And if the appeals are successful, and as Senator pointed out in Portsmouth, they had to address back taxes, that is money that's going to have to be made up elsewhere in the town or the city. So whether that's by increasing property taxes elsewhere on residential properties or reducing services, these are decisions, these appeals will have real-world impacts on cities and towns. So for that reason, we think it's very important to pass this legislation. It, again, just restores it back to the previous practice before the Supreme Court decision. We do think in the longer term, there needs to be a deeper dive into reviewing the state's property valuation and taxation system. Governor McKee has endorsed a study commission. The League has supported that in the past see if it's possible to move to annual revaluation so we don't have these types of issues. That's what Massachusetts does. But there are a lot of complexities in that. So that's the longer term issue, and we think we should address that in the longer term. But in the near term, we want to restore the standard to where it was prior to this decision and urge the committee to support it. Thank you, Senator Seveney, for introducing the bill and for the committee for hearing me today.
Thank you very much, Brian. Any questions for Brian? Brian, thank you very much for your testimony. Appreciate it. You have a great night.
Great, thank you. You too.
Next testifying on this bill is Matthew Andrew Helfand, in support, representing the Town of Portsmouth Assessor's Office. Matthew, welcome to the committee.
Thank you. I really appreciate you giving me this opportunity to speak. I'm in support of Senate Bill 115. The key points, the bill will address the current ambiguity and conflicting statutory provisions in Rhode Island general law, which the state Supreme Court felt needed to be addressed. Second, it clarifies and reflects the intent of the General Assembly when they enacted the legislation in 1997 in regard to revaluation and tax appeal process. Third, it validates and authorizes the past practices of Rhode Island assessors since the 97 legislation. And four, and most importantly, it evens the playing field and restores fairness and equity in the tax appeal process.
Thank you, Matthew. I do see a town resolution in support of this bill. Are there any questions for Matthew? Hearing none, Matthew, very much for your testimony. Enjoy your evening.
You too, and thanks a lot.
At this time, do I hear a motion to hold? Made by Senator Rogers, seconded by Senator Picard. Clerk, please take a roll.
Senator Lombardo,
Yes.
Senator Coleman,
Yes.
Senator Rogers,
Yes.
Senator Anderson,
Yes.
Senator Gallo, Senator Gallo,
Yeah. Yes.
Senator Mack,
Yes.
Senator Picard,
Yes.
held for further study.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. We're going to jump down to Senate Bill 388 by Senator Coyne. She has to prepare for her judiciary meeting this afternoon, so we're going to jump and give her the floor. Senator Coyne, Bill 388, joint resolution creating a special legislation commission to study and make recommendations regarding the licensing of residential builders and contractors. First, I'd like to applaud you for submitting this bill, Senator Coyne. The floor is all yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. Thank you for your attention, committee members. I introduced this back in 2020. Of course, with COVID, we never got a chance to hear it. But the purpose of this commission shall be to make a comprehensive study and frame recommendations regarding the licensing of residential builders and contractors. I believe the last time that this was revisited was back in 2009, or it might have been earlier than that. And over time, that there's been varying specialized licenses created to ensure certain contractors possess specialized knowledge and skill for certain purposes. So this review will give us a fresh look at the standards in the residential construction industry and evaluate what's working or not here in Rhode Island, and also to review the best practices in other states. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you, Senator Coyne. Any questions for Senator Coyne? Hearing none. We do have someone, Bill Walsh from the Rhode Island Builders Association, in support of this bill. Can we get Bill on the phone? Mr. Walsh, welcome to the committee.
Thank
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, and a special thank you to Chair Coyne for sponsoring this important legislation. She really did a great job in outlining the check-in that we're doing on the system and the role that the registration and licensure process plays in protecting consumers here. So the Rhode Island Builders Association is in strong support of this legislation. We think it's a timely review so that we make sure that the people doing the work here in the community are provided with the right skills and knowledge where necessary, but also that everybody comply with the basic framework for registration where that's appropriate as well. So we applaud the effort to study this issue. Massachusetts has a licensing model that's different than ours that seems to be working well. So that's another area that we want to do comparisons with. But we really want to make sure that we're keeping up to best practices in the industry. And so for those reasons, we're in support.
Thank you very much, Bill. Any questions for Bill? Hearing none. Is there a motion to move this? By Senator Picard. Is there a second? By Senator Rogers.
I believe Senator Mack had a question, Chair.
I'm sorry, Senator Mack, you have a question?
Yes, I
Go
wanted
ahead.
if the witness could detail what are the differences between the Massachusetts licensing program and Rhode Island, and if there's also any emphasis on bringing more diverse folks into this field, like including more women in the building trades as part of the licensing process. Or if Chair Coyne knew.
Bill Walsh?
Sure. Thank you, Senator. As it relates to the Massachusetts model, I actually, let me start with Rhode Island. Right now we have a contractors registration and licensing board for our contractors here. And the basics of it functions as a way that we created, I think it dates back to the 1980s, or maybe 1990 when it came into effect, which was to create kind of a baseline of registration that we have all contractors comply with in order to essentially register so that we're known, we're aware, we're licensed, and that there's a tracking mechanism in place. But it really didn't address any licensure about particularized skills, knowledge, experience, training, etc. There's certain those things in place in our commercial systems, but as it relates to the residential world, this is really the entry point that a lot of folks develop their skills and build from there. Over time, the Contractors Registration Licensing Board has developed certain licensed practice things to include in our industries, whether it's home inspections, water filtration, commercial roofing, things of those natures have been updated over time, but it really doesn't get into making sure that the projects the people are undertaking, that they're fully qualified and ready to do that. Massachusetts has a model that focuses on kind of a basic licensure that you meet these standards for home improvement type of thing, but if you wanted to be a general contractor to build a whole house, you would need additional training responsibilities and the like. So that's the model they've adopted, and so that's something that we're interested in as well. It's not to say that that's the only model. There are other states that we certainly want to take a look at. And as far as diversification of the workforce, we're very strong supporters of all workforce training and opportunities to bring all people into our industry, because we value both the diversity of the people, but also the value that everybody can make contributing into this important work to help us with the reaching many of the important goals with housing development in Rhode Island.
Awesome, thank you.
Bill, I have one question. The contractor's license now, is that renewable yearly or every 2 to 5 years?
Great question. There are also varying aspects that are biannually, and then there are some things that require every year to be done. And I know there's even a budget article that addresses kind of the payment of this fee and what fee to be done over what timeline. So this would also be an important way to help clean up all of these deviations over time. So we'd support that analysis as well.
And correct me if I'm wrong, the contractor's license allows them to do roofing, contracting, sheetrocking, just about every trade out there. Hopefully this will specify certain trades in the licensing when it does come to that.
Absolutely. I think it's an appropriate review to take a look at what things require higher standards to be met in order to make sure that the people know when they're hiring someone to perform a particular task that they're well versed in. We think licensure does provide that safeguard in many ways.
Thank you, Bill. Any other questions for Billy or Cindy? Senator Coyne. Hearing none. Is there a motion to move passage?
So moved.
By Senator Rogers and Senator Picard. Is there a second? Second by Senator Gallo. Clerk, please take the roll.
Senator Lombardo,
Yes.
Senator Coleman,
Yes.
Senator Rogers,
Yes.
Senator Anderson,
Yes.
Senator Gallo,
Yes.
Senator Mack,
Yes.
Senator Picard.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We'll see you next week. Enjoy your week.
Thank you.
The next bill on the agenda is Bill 174. We're trying to get a hold of Senator Felag now, so we're going to skip down to 288, see if we have any success getting a hold of Senator Felag. Bill 288, an act relating to taxation levy assessment on local taxes by Senator McCaffrey, Leader McCaffrey. We do have someone that testify, and that's Bill Walsh. Bill, welcome back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Bill Walsh, still here on behalf of the Rhode Island Builders Association, also in strong support of this legislation by Leader McCaffrey. This has been a protocol in works over the last, I think the legislation first began almost a decade ago. It was enacted about 6 years ago, and we are approaching the sunset of this protocol, which essentially holds firm the tax rate that's being charged on a property while this important redevelopment or speculative housing that's being built is being done. And so while a contractor improves this property but doesn't have that beneficial use because nobody's in there yet or there wasn't a property and now a structure is being built, we're concerned about the changing of taxes as each aspect of the project proceeds. So a few years back in 2015, this became law. And what this says is while we're doing these improvements, these taxes are going to remain the same. And then it kicks back into effect at the earlier of either a certificate of occupancy being issued, the property going under contract for sale, or at the maximum amount of time of 2 years. And so we've now lived with this law for about 5 years, and we've seen its success in helping get more speculative housing developed as well as redeveloping certain properties that were being underutilized. And so we're in great support to continue this, and therefore the bill before you tonight is an effort to just make what is in place and working. And I'm not aware of any objections, but it's to make it permanent and keep building on the success. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Billy. Billy, are you aware of any problems that have occurred the last 5 or 6 years? Any discrepancy that may have come forth?
I am not aware, Mr. Chairman, and I'm actually very pleased that over the time that this has gone on, we've actually built some great collaboration with many of the municipalities who initially feared what impacts this could have, and now in conversations with the League, cities and towns, and many of the communities themselves, we understand that people are comfortable with this and that it's working and that it strikes a fair balance, and that's why we're not seeking to change any of the substantive qualifications, but merely trying to say, we all agree this is working, let's go in that direction and just make this permanent, and that's why we're here tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, Billy. Any other questions for Billy Walsh? Hearing none. Do I hear a motion for passage? By Senator Rogers,
Seconded.
second by Senator Picard and Senator Anderson. Clerk, please take the roll.
Senator Lombardo,
Yes.
Senator Coleman,
Yes.
Senator Rogers,
Yes.
Senator Anderson,
Yes.
Senator Gallo,
Yes.
Senator Mack,
Yes.
Senator Picard.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Clerk. We're still trying to get a hold of Senator Felag. I do see Senator DeMario here, so we're going to skip down to Bill number 654, an act relating to towns and cities, small businesses, zoning ordinances. Senator DeMario, welcome to the committee. Floor is all yours. Please take a minute to explain this bill to us.
Sure. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee for considering this today. So this is a piece of COVID responsive legislation. As we all know, our restaurants have had to make a lot of adaptations and modifications over the past year to try to keep their doors open, try to keep their employees employed, and to try to provide food for all of us in our communities. And so the intention of this bill is looking ahead to hopefully the not so distant future, where the state of emergency declaration is going to be lifted. And once that happens, a lot of those modifications that were allowed under that state of emergency, the modified outdoor dining, takeout windows, some of those things that restaurants invested a lot of their own money and rushed to be able to put into place so that they could again stay in business, all of a sudden are going to be subject to the regular zoning ordinances again, which would mean that they would have to cease using those things. And so the intention of this bill is to provide a bit of a grace period, a blanket grace period saying that after the state of emergency is lifted, restaurants would be able to keep those modifications for a period of time. Sorry, I just froze for a second. Restaurants would be able to keep those modifications for a period of time without having those ordinances imposed on them. And that would allow them to do a couple of things. Obviously, they wouldn't be mandated to do this, but if they chose to, even once their restaurants inside could open up to full capacity, it would allow them to have some extra tables, be able to make some extra money, potentially employ some extra staff. The other piece that would be important here is that, there's probably going to be a period of time where after the state of emergency is lifted, not everybody who wants to get a vaccination will have been able to yet, potentially. People might still have a higher comfort level being able to dine outside and not inside. And so it would allow restaurants to be able to offer that flexibility to patrons. And then during that grace period, it would also allow for a mechanism by which restaurants, if they chose, could be able to apply to keep those modifications permanent. So, as we've seen in other areas, like telehealth, for example, COVID has given us a chance to see what is possible and what actually does kind of work out. And so it's given sort of a test case for some of these things. And, so that would give the restaurants an opportunity to be able to make that case to their cities and towns to be able to keep some of those modifications in place permanently. I'd be happy to take any questions. I will also just note that this bill has already had a House hearing. There was some feedback from some cities and towns and some municipalities, with some concerns, and certainly I'm receptive to being able to adjust this to address any of those concerns as well. But I welcome any questions from the committee.
Thank you, Senator DeMario. Do we have any questions for Senator DeMario?
Yes.
Senator Mack.
Yes, what were some of the concerns from the House committee, Senator DeMario?
Thank you for asking. So there were just some concerns about potentially overly broad language, or was a year the right period of time to be putting this grace period in place? And so there were some discussions with a few municipalities about maybe some minor changes that would still keep the intent and the impact the same, but would maybe address some of their concerns. I think, one of the things that was raised was, could there not be any zoning ordinances enforced at all? And that's not the intention of this bill. The intention of this bill is really just around those specific modifications that were made in response to COVID. So, if there were other issues of a different nature or a disruptive nature, it wouldn't prevent the cities or towns from being able to take action. And certainly if there was any type of safety issue, they wouldn't be prevented from doing that. And so we just would want to make sure to make that very clear.
Senator Mario, I do have a couple questions regarding this. This does take all the authority away from the cities and towns regarding their local codes, their building codes. That's number one. Even if it is illegal, this would allow them to do it. The second one is a full year after the pandemic is over. They would be able to continue that regardless of the cities and towns' building official codes. I'd just like a response from that, if you can.
Absolutely. And so I think that those were some of the concerns that were raised in the House hearing as well. And again, this would specifically be related to, the intention is that it would just specifically be related to those modifications that were made to be able to continue to do business during COVID in terms of like outdoor seating or takeout windows or, some of those types of things. And so the intention would not be to take away power completely regarding, safety issues or things like that. And like you mentioned, some of the cities and towns had mentioned that maybe a year is a little bit too long. And so I'm also going to be working with the House sponsor to communicate with them and figure out what the right time frame might be.
Any questions for Senator DiMario? Senator Coleman? No? Senator Mario, would you be willing to tighten this up a little bit and then get back to us?
Absolutely. Yep. I'm going to speak to Representative McEntee, who has this on the House side, and we're going to try to address some of those concerns and bring it back. But again, if this committee has any feedback specifically, I'd be happy to hear it as well.
Great. Thank you very much. With that being said, any other discussion? Is there a motion to hold?
Motion to hold.
By Senator Rogers and Senator Coleman, second by Senator Coleman. Roll, please take a call.
Senator Lombardo?
Yes.
Senator Coleman?
Yes.
Senator Rogers?
Yes.
Senator Anderson?
Yes.
Senator Gallo?
Yes.
Senator Mack?
Yes.
Senator Picard?
Yes.
Motion's held.
Thank you, Senator DiMario. Please enjoy your evening and have a great weekend.
Thanks so much, Mr. Chairman. Take care.
Well, we've had no luck getting a hold of Senator Felag, which is the last bill on our calendar today, which is 174, an act relating to health and safety, new home buyers fire protection act. This mandates that builders of a new one or two family residential dwelling provide home buying with written information regarding the installation of automatic fire sprinkler systems subject to civil penalties for violations enforcement by the AG or state fire marshal. We have heard this bill, I believe, for the last 3 years. It was heard in labor, and there was quite a bit of kickback from contractors on this. So everybody understands that what this would do, remember from the past, that a builder would present to the buyer what it would cost, the cost of a sprinkler on a one-family or two-family home, and give them information regarding the installation of that. This wouldn't mandate that the contractor add this to their project. Do we have any questions regarding this bill? Senator Rogers?
Thank you, Chair. I do remember this bill coming through, and there were a lot of questions. I know the Realtors Association had a problem with it selling it. It adds, in my opinion, extra paperwork that's not needed. Where do we go next? Do we require them to requirement of closing to decide what it's going to cost for track lighting versus regular lighting? I think, and also on the other issue is, living in a rural community, I'd say almost 80% of my entire district does not have city water capabilities, which is kind of key to electrical sprinkler system. Water sprinkler systems in residential homes. So I did have some serious problems with it. I don't think it was thought out thoroughly enough last time, and I still hold the same opinion at this point. That's all.
Thank you, Senator Rogers. Any other comments or questions regarding this bill? I do know that it will be a substantial, Senator Coleman.
I was just going to ask if you could go through, thank you, Mr. Chair, some of the objections that you had heard.
I'll try to remember Senator Picard, I believe, and Senator Rogers was on labor when we heard this bill. One of the biggest concerns was the cost to adding the cost to a home of a single family or a two-family home. It would be a substantial cost. You would have to run what they call black pipe. It's black Malibu pipe, which is a cast iron pipe or a steel pipe that would be vented through your attic. And if you had a two-family or a two-story house, it would have to go down in the walls. And there was concerns that the water, if you lost your heat, the water in those pipes could burst and cause serious damage to your house. That was another question that they had. In this, again, this only would allow the contractor or mandate that the contractor give information to the homeowners. The other problem was if a contractor built a house, spec house, without a buyer and then put it on the market to sell, what good would the paperwork going to the new homeowner after the house was built and in place? That cost of that would be so outrageous that it wouldn't even be worth doing at that point. Does anybody else have any response to that was on the committee when they heard this?
Mr. Chairman?
Senator Picard? Senator Picard?
If I remember correctly also, we're having the contractor who's building this rely on bids from people who do this type of installation that they may not be doing, but they'd be held responsible for the price if something went wrong or any future issues that if something went wrong versus the person who did the actual installation, if I remember correctly.
That is correct, Senator Picard. Any other questions or comments, concerns with this bill? Well, since Senator Feelag is not here, is there a motion to hold? By Senator Rogers. Is there a second by Senator Coleman? And Senator Picard and Senator Gallo. Clerk, take the roll.
Senator Lombardo?
Yes.
Senator Coleman?
Yes.
Senator Rogers?
Yes.
Senator Anderson?
Yes.
Senator Gallo?
Yes.
Senator Mack?
Yes.
Senator Picard?
Yes.
Held for further study.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. That concludes our meeting this afternoon. I want to thank all committee members. I know we started a little earlier this week. I'd like to wish everybody, Senator Gallo?
Yes. Can I be recorded affirmative in the votes that I missed prior to my getting here?
So moved.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion to adjourn? By
Motion
Senator
to
Rogers,
adjourn.
seconded by Senator Mack. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Enjoy the rest of the week and have a great weekend.
Thank you, you too.